like if you're yourself and you illustrate that you're competent at something, that started this referral component.
We're rolling.
Sweet.
Okay. Thank you for joining. I am Kate Broddick, and you are in the vault with the Kate Broddick team. And I am so excited to have my friend and colleague, Mike Heddle, here with Royal LePage to give us a lot of great information today that's both great for the consumer and for agents on investing and real estate structure. So thank you, Mike, for coming here.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It's we've known each other, I guess, professionally for a while, and we've also got a small personal connection.
Oh, what's the personal connection?
Through Nadine.
Oh, yeah, that's right. I knew that.
I don't know. So we've never truly connected on that. But anyways, we've known one another. We've done business with one another. It's a pleasure to be here.
Yes.
And I love what you're doing. I love the space here, too.
Yeah, we just said this is a great bomb shelter in case the world ends. But you know what? It's obviously not even just from a distance. Like we've done conferences together through Kathleen Beck's consulting business, and also just like panels together through other small venues. And what I've always really admired about your business is your class act.
Thank you.
I think you practice what you preach. I love the collaboration, and like you just said it outside. If you want anything, Kate, like I have no problems giving it to you. Yeah.
For some reason, this is such a competitive industry.
Yes.
You know that, but it's also one of the most cooperative industries that I've ever embarked upon. And thank you for acknowledging that, because I was fortunate. I grew up, I'll call it privileged. I grew up in a family of physicians. My father was a plastic surgeon. My grandfather was a GP, so a medical family. My mother's a rock star when it comes to in medicine as well, in transfusion medicine. So I grew up watching professionals and the way they conducted themselves. And as I got into this industry, I started to do some work with that into the doctors. And I had the dean of medicine saying, like, what are you doing? Why are you getting into real estate? This is an industry of non-ethical, non-professionals. And I disagree. I think this industry needs people like you. It needs professionals like because yourself. We're dealing with, their large asset. Like, you can't be transactional in this business. Certainly anymore. You've got to take a consultant's approach in order to really set yourself above, the standard.
And so, I agree. I think, it is what you make it, right? If you're going to, it's who you play with in this profession, right? You're going to bang around with people who have unethical practices, who don't treat this as a professional's career, a consultant's business, then that's what you become. But if who you hang around with or who you do business with or who you learn from has a higher standard for themselves, that's what you become, right?
I don't know. How long have you been practicing for?
13 years.
13 years.
Yes.
I think we did a deal roughly 13 years ago.
It might have been actually. I think we did one on Nightingale.
If
Was
you
it
remember
Nightingale?
You're better than I am.
Yeah,
But I won't remember the address.
Bungalow. You know what? I always do it because one of the biggest things I will always stand by is when you have a positive interaction with another realtor where both parties are clearly working for the best interest of the transaction, that stands out.
It certainly does. But I think in longevity, which I'm focusing more on in my personal life, like how do I stay healthy longer? Longevity in this business requires an ethical practice, that consultant's approach, et cetera. So thanks for acknowledging it. It is, we try to elevate our standard service at Heddle Real Estate team of Royal LePage, and it means a lot for you to acknowledge that. So thank you.
I love that. Oh, of course. And I think the biggest thing here that we want to do is, for those who don't know Mike, is I want to get to know you from where did Mike start and how did you get into real estate? A nice synopsis of, because there are people looking to get into this career, and most of us did not start out wanting to be a real estate agent. There has been a little path there, and then we have some really important topics that I want to cover.
Cool. I don't want to bore your listeners, but I got into this business like many others did. I wanted to work for myself. I was sharing with you that I did an internship at Good Humor Briars. I did an engineering degree, and then I did 2 degrees, one in economics and one in commerce. So overeducated to get into the industry from a barriers standpoint. As you know, it takes 3 courses. You got to be a Canadian citizen, right? 3 courses and pass to become a realtor. So I got into the business because I wanted to work for myself and I wanted to make lots of money. I think that's why most people get into the business. And I don't think if I knew then what I know now, I don't know that I would have gotten into this business.
I might be on that same path as you, but
you've got to work way harder than anybody ever told you.
Yeah.
To talk earlier about that, I grew up where, if my father got a call in the middle of the night, it wasn't because somebody wanted to buy a house. It's because they had been involved in a burn or attacked by a dog. So life was on the line. And I've always kind of had that, I'll call it humility. I hate when people that are humble, reference it. But, what we do is important, but it's not life-altering important. Yeah. So I think I've always had that perspective where I've tried to check my ego at the door, and I've always tried to put the client first, much like a physician would. Like, it's not about the physician who's great, it's about the patient care, and we've had that kind of overarching. So I got into the business, right out of university. I got licensed. I've been doing this for 20 years now, and I love our practice. We were chatting a moment ago. You won't drive through Hamilton and see any of our billboards, which is an amazing marketing strategy if it's right for you. I know when I drive through Brantford, I feel like I see you at every corner.
We pop out
and
of every
corner. It's lovely. I feel like, there's Kate again, right? I get to see her. We've built a really big referral-based business, and I'll talk a little bit about our organization. It's a small team with 3 administrators and 7 licensed agents. And when have you ever seen an organizational chart when you look at a business, like you got the CEO at the top and then the VPs and so on and so forth?
Yep.
I kind of flip that script upside down.
Bottom-up approach.
So when I think of our organization, and if you see it in our branding, you see that our branding has really taken the vision of an apiary where bees live. And listen, as I explain this, follow through with me if you can. As we went through this rebrand, we had our marketing company say, like, you guys remind me of bees. You're hardworking. You have a strong impact on your internal culture and an impact on your external culture. Did you know that bees are very data-driven, methodical? Every little beehive is perfectly shaped in a hexagon. Yeah. And that kind of resonated with all of us in our management team, going like, that does speak volumes as to who we are. So you'll see our brand mark is a couple of hexagons. That also ties into this interconnectivity within the industry. So I've done a great job, I guess, at just by, being honest and ethical of building a national brand where Heddle Real Estate in Hamilton is known within the Royal LePage network across the country. And we don't have any billboards to do it. We've done it through a referral-based organization or relationships.
Which we just talked about in terms of fixed and variable costs is incredibly genius. And it's also putting a lot of confidence in your relationships that you've built, because it's so easy to feel confident when your fixed costs are going up, but you can tangibly see these boards or buses or other marketing things. But if the money isn't coming in directly attributed to those fixed costs, it can be very expensive.
Yeah, I've been doing this for 20 years. I've seen some of the big names that have big marketing budgets in tough markets not thrive. I love your business. I love so many components about your business. You create a great culture. You're talking about one of the line items within running a profitable business. Yeah. And I'll elaborate a little bit. A fixed cost, if you're new to the business, it may be things like running billboards or marketing campaigns or, your print material, your business cards. We've built I'll call it a variable cost business where roughly a third of the volume that we do, the number of homes that we sell, roughly a third of them come from a referral source. And in this industry, it's legal and common practice to pay a referral fee. So when somebody sends me a client from Toronto, because we're situated in Hamilton, which is, receives this urban sprawl benefit, people coming out of Toronto, we pay them a referral fee. It's a marketing fee and it's legal and it's above board. I just felt much more comfortable paying a fee, cost, if I did the transaction and not running a billboard or a bench and not knowing what that would produce.
I think it makes sense financially, and I don't take that in a personal way at all, because if anything, that allows me to learn from that. I think it's strategically, it's brilliant, because you're putting a lot more faith in relationships that bring loyalty and commitment, and also they trust you with their clients.
Yeah, it's an extension. We're so grateful for the referral business that we get, and often when we pick up the phone and thank that agent, I recognize that that's an extension of their brand. Like when they send you their client,
absolutely it is.
They are extending their arm, and you'd better treat them like a VIP.
Absolutely.
So standard of service. These are terms that you're used to at your firm here, and they're high. Like to be a part of the Cape Broddick team, you'd better be professional. You'd better show up because you're representing a great national brand, a brand that people are familiar with, and that you've helped elevate to that standard. And I think that's what the industry needs. I think it's fantastic.
Now, if you're comfortable talking about this, because I mean, we're on this roll right now, I want to stick with the referral business because there are very few agents that I know that have such a large network as you do.
Yeah.
One, for the agents, where would you say that stemmed from? How did you start creating that? Because once again, from a marketability standpoint, if you don't have the billboards and the buses, this is conversations, this is growing a network, this is time.
Yeah. I would say I wish I was intelligent enough to say that it was my intention and my strategy.
Yeah.
But much like most successes in life,
it's opportunity.
The byproduct of hard work and failure.
Yeah.
So for me, the referral component, and I love talking about my business, as I'm sure you do. It's a byproduct of hard work and passion and so on and so forth. We've got all these verticals. So I talked about the medical community. Early in my career, I put relationships in place with the faculty of medicine and helped them land new doctors coming to the area by showcasing that Hamilton wasn't just a steel town. So I'd call this your institutional relationship. If you're an individual agent or a team leader, I think there's some real nuggets in what I'm about to share. Think about creating these verticals of your business. And for me, that was the first one. You talked about how did you get started? I'm going to share a cute story. When I got my license, like most agents, I went to the office and waited for the phone to ring. And it didn't ring. And one Thanksgiving, I went home to visit my parents, and my younger sister was at the house, and I decided to have a nap. And that was about 20 years ago. That's the last time I've had a nap. Yeah. And my phone rang with a blocked number. As I picked up the phone, on the other end of the line, I heard a voice saying, "Hi, I'm looking for Mike. I'd like to buy a house." And I panicked. Do you remember your first phone call?
I do remember my first phone call. I didn't have a pad of paper around because at that point in time, you didn't use notes.
Same. I scrambled. I went looking for a piece of paper. I didn't even know what to say. I'd had no script training. I just kind of said, what's your name and how can I help you? And I heard my younger sister burst into laughter on the other end of the line and say, get downstairs. It's time.
Oh my God.
It's time for dinner, butthead. And I'll never forget that, in the sense that no matter how hard I look at this phone, it's not going to ring. What am I going to do? So I love that saying. So what are you going to do about it? So, I went and created a relationship with the faculty of medicine, helped them showcase that, here's the value proposition I can provide. And it was a great program. Early in my career, I was much younger than I am today. I didn't have as many gray hairs. And, I was picking up high-end listings, and people were wondering, why are you working with all these doctors? And the answer was, I created a program or a value proposition that didn't exist in the marketplace. So that's vertical one, institutional relationships. If you work with, I don't know whether it's medicine or whether it's a big factory in your marketplace, there's an opportunity to create that institutional relationship. The second was developers. I started work with Mars Homes, who's an amazing builder in the Hamilton region. They're family-based, and they liked the way that I was representing myself and the brand, and so we started to do some work for them, and they were pivotal. The management team there, I can't say enough great things about. So that was another vertical. New home sales, so we had the backup properties. And I started to become kind of this top producer. I didn't have a team at this point, and I didn't know where to look to find mentorship in a team. And within the Royal LePage community, they have what's called the National Chairman's Club, which is the top 1%ers. And when you make it into this club, you're invited to a retreat that you have to pay for. And I was just at a point in my career where I thought, what's the next step, and how do I find a mentor? Maybe if I surround myself with these winners, I'll pick something up. But I was cautious. I thought I was going to be amongst a bunch of arrogant and egotistical people. And I'll never forget, I tell the story this, I landed in Italy. I didn't know anybody. I had no friends. And I thought, what am I doing leaving home and business? And I started to make some personal connections with people that to this day, one in Ottawa called me, one in Vancouver called me. If you're yourself and you illustrate that you're competent at something, that started this referral component. And, we're in a great geography here in Hamilton, whereby we're seeing the urban sprawl out of Toronto.
Absolutely.
So I think think there's a little bit of, I'll call it luck there in the sense that I was the right place at the right time. But, the harder I work, the luckier I tend to get, right?
But the referral-based business, a lot of people talk about it, but they don't really take that opportunity and bring it to the level that you have. Do you mind sharing in terms of what you paid out in referral fees?
Yeah, we consistently pay out anywhere from $250,000 to $400,000 in referral fees.
That's your marketing cost.
There's my marketing cost, what we talked about. So I will take that marketing cost any day of the week. It's very difficult to do. And I would call it, when you go to some of these conferences, you see people that have commission breath, right? They're running around giving out cards. Like they're just looking to create the relationship because they think there's some compensation as a result of it.
Absolutely.
I don't carry any cards with me, and it's not because I carry an ego.
Neither do I.
I know, right? I want to get to know you. Like, if you like me and if you trust me, then maybe I'll have an opportunity to win some of your business. And it really was just a byproduct of forming deep relationships.
And it's over 20 years.
Over 20 years.
I mean, that's the other thing is, and I'm sure the last decade you've probably seen it. I can attest to with my own business. It took me probably about year 7, 8.
Yeah.
By forming those relationships, people understanding who I was, they could get a good sense of how I ran my team or how I run my business. That's when I started to see the referrals come in.
Yeah.
But it's not just about making that one transaction. It's about maintaining that relationship, not just with the client, but also with the agent.
Absolutely. I mean, a lot of agents have built big referral businesses from their client base, which is an amazing strategy.
Absolutely, it is.
We were, I guess, just fortunate. Like, I wasn't strategic. I just started to see the byproduct of it. And for years, I chanted, like, the secret sauce in this organization is this. All organizations have their benefit, and different brokerages offer many different value props. I mean, the culture that you guys have is fantastic, and to just compliment you on the name that you've built in this in the West End, I'll call it West of Hamilton. If I had a property to list out here, like, I'd be calling you. You've got a great center of influence. You've got a great brand.
Thank you.
And
I appreciate
you're
that.
trusted, and that's the industry doesn't trust us.
No, we have to
off the get-go.
We're not trusted until we've earned it.
You're right. And when you earn it, you don't take it lightly. So
no, you don't.
Yeah, you've done a great job of that. One of the other verticals I think that was really pivotal in creating that referral business was the work that we do with investors. So about 15 years ago, we got affiliated with a guy that you know as well, Scott McGilvery. We met Scott through one of his other companies called Keyspire. So it is pretty cool. I'm going to share this story. I was approached by Keyspire when they had something like 60 members. It was a relatively small network. It was a baby. And I'll never forget our first investor summit. And there was just a few of us realtors in the room and about 60 people in that summit. And so we've watched that network grow from a relatively small network to arguably the country's largest investment network. And I'm proud to say that we've stood alongside them for so long because of the honest approach and ethical approach that we take. So I'm getting sidetracked here for a moment, but just to give some context, to your client base, like who this organization is. We started doing a lot of volume. The engineer in me, the economist in me, I like numbers. We started to advise, and I was an investor young, had bought some properties. So we started to advise clients on acquiring investment real estate. And then I saw this opportunity for the brokers in markets like Oakville, where there just aren't good cash flowing properties. Yeah. So we would host meetups with these top teams saying, let me showcase what you can buy just down the street, and let's have a referral program in place. So any of your clients that acquire with us, of course, that's a marketing fee. We're going to, provide you with a referral for it. And that landed really, really well, where some of these top teams just didn't have the expertise or the product in their marketplace to offer their clients. And we were able to tap into their client databases by offering an immense value proposition.
And once again, Oakville is Oakville. It's got a much higher average sale price. But if someone was in that local area and wanted to invest a half an hour down the road, now they're coming into your territory as well.
Absolutely. So we were able to, imagine this. And when you see the cooperation in this industry, like imagine me saying, Kate, I'd love to get access to your database.
Yeah.
You'd be like, No, I've spent 13 years
give it to you,
building
Mike.
this.
Don't worry about it.
But if I said to you, why don't you host an event? And I'm going to talk about, now Brantford has some great and
great opportunities.
This area also has some great opportunities. But imagine you in a market that didn't offer these great opportunities. You could deliver a great value proposition to your clients saying, we specialize in all things real estate. You know, it's not just when you want to buy or sell your home. If you're considering investing in real estate or investing in private equities, call me first because I've got my finger on the pulse. I know who's ethical and who's honest and who has a good reputation.
And also who deals in that sector of the industry, right? I mean, and I'll be the first one to admit, we do a lot of multi-residential homes, but we do it up to a certain level of units, right? Then it becomes a very different beast.
You know, you've got, and this is a great point, like you've got to be and I'll tie this into medicine. My grandfather was a GP. He was a practitioner of all things general. But if you go to, you know, an ENT or a
urologist, whatever.
That's right. So real estate's no different. When it comes to, you know, investment real estate, you've got to know your stuff.
You do.
Because if you promise to a client a rate of return and you don't deliver, what's happening next? RICO complaint, lawsuit. You know, we are guided professionals. So it's an area that on our team, you've got to go through some robust training before you can be considered an investment specialist.
But isn't that how it should always be, though?
Absolutely.
Robust training.
Without a doubt.
Because then your client not just has confidence that you're going to deliver, but you also know what you're delivering to the client.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I'll share one other nugget because I think this is great for your audience. So we started to see all of these investors wanting to take action. And I know that our climate right now is a little bit uncertain. I think it's a great time to be an investor.
I think so too.
Right. And we can talk about that. But we started to look at going, how do we put these fantastic investment opportunities that have been vetted and tested in front of our clients? And I use this analogy. I borrowed it from a friend, Chuck Charlton. But if I had you into my home and we were sitting in my den and I said to you, you know, I've got one of those tubes of chocolate chip cookies in the fridge. Would you like me to go make us some chocolate chip cookies? You'd probably say, no, don't bother. I'm fine. Yeah. But if I walked in with a warm plate of fresh baked hot chocolate chip cookies, you'd probably find them irresistible. So we did that with our investors and we created a weekly subscription, which we just call our deal of the week. I think we're up to something like 12,000 investors subscribe to it. There is a ton of value. Like we run the financials and we serve it up to you on a silver platter, a warm plate of chocolate chip cookies.
Yeah.
And it doesn't cost anything. It's a weekly subscription. If you're members, I'd be happy. Like we are offering that. If anyone wants to just watch it, for those of you that are in the industry and are realtors, take this nugget, maybe not investment real estate, but maybe you're in a small market like, I don't know, Wasaga Beach. Like take the best property that's on the market and put out to your database. This is what we think the best deal in the market is right now. So take some of these concepts and maybe don't model or mimic them word for word, but think of how you can use an idea like this.
Grow it how you can sell it.
That's right. And your area of expertise.
Now, well, that's the other thing. It is the area of expertise. And I if we're staying on this deal with the week, because from a consumer standpoint, you know, maybe I own 3 properties. Maybe I don't own any. Maybe I'm looking to get my feet wet. If they were to subscribe to your newsletter, what can they expect? Yeah,
that's a great question. So we showcase the best investment property in the markets that we serve, and we break them down in a real easy consumer language. So in the industry, you might remember when you were getting your license and doing the commercial component, you had to calculate things like payback period and cap rates and all of these difficult mathematical calculations that often go over people's heads. We break down every investment and we look at what we call the 4 fundamentals, which are how much cash flow does it produce? Yeah. So on a monthly basis, you were sharing one of your properties that you're excited about. Yeah. On a monthly basis, how much cash flow is it producing? And we calculate that over the equity investment. So if I buy a $500,000 property, I've got to put 20% down plus closing costs. That's my equity that I'm putting in. Yeah. And then we look at that as a percentage. So some great properties might yield, I don't know, a 3 to 5% cash on cash return. Yeah. So that's fundamental number 1. The second fundamental is how much of that principal portion of the mortgage is being paid down each year. So as you know, your mortgage payment consists of both interest and principal. Yeah. And you can do a calculation where you determine how much principal is being paid down. And when you've got a tenant occupying the property, they're in fact forcing some savings for you. They're paying down that principal. Yeah. So you can calculate that each year and represent that as a portion of equity investment. So that's the second fundamental. And then the third fundamental, there's four, but we classified number 3 and 4 all within appreciation. So there's forced appreciation. You take a building like this and you renovate it and you beautify it and add some value to it so you can calculate what that forced appreciation is. And then there's active appreciation, and that's just what the market will naturally. So we see many of our properties that we showcase in our marketplace yielding anywhere from a 25 to 45% total return.
Wow.
Yeah. So, but you've got to make sure that investing in real estate and being an owner is right for you.
Absolutely.
And that's part of our onboarding process.
Now, this is actually a personal question because I love this because being an investor myself, these are the things that you have to look at to say, is it worth it?
Yeah.
And obviously, 2021 and 2022, we saw that spike in the market, and then we saw downward trajectory.
Yeah.
So when you're calculating that active appreciation for your clients, and we're coming out of those years that you can't really look at those years necessarily, how are you explaining that to them now?
We've always taken a conservative approach.
Yeah.
The saying under promise, over deliver, I think is applicable to any professional. Back in those heightened markets where we are seeing 25% appreciation, like that just was never sustainable.
No.
So we've always kind of used an estimate of 3%, which is in line with inflation, anywhere from 3 to 5%. If you look at the Hamilton market and you look at a 65-year trend, we've seen real estate appreciate 11% year over year.
Yeah, I was going to say probably 8 to 10 or something.
Yeah,
on average.
So often we run the numbers very conservatively at 5%. That's kind of like the dessert. And in fact, you're not going to realize that appreciation until one of two events take place. Either you sell the property or you refinance it down the road. So I guess while we're on this topic, it's really prudent to advise that like investing in real estate isn't for everybody.
No, it's not.
And there are multiple ways that you can invest in real estate. So we're talking about owning bricks and mortar and becoming a landlord and maybe hiring out a property manager. But there are ways to invest in real estate passively, such as private lending or private mortgages, which I love. I've done for almost 20 years now. Or there's a third, I'd call it more advanced. If you look at a continuum of investing in real estate, bricks and mortar is like very hands-on.
Yes, tangible. You can see it.
You can see it. You can touch it. Private mortgages is kind of like a mid-range. And then if you go to the other end of the continuum, you're looking at how to invest in land deals. So companies like, Graybrook Private Equity or Equiton, or there are many private equity opportunities for investor to invest in. So if you're interested in investing in real estate, I would say find and align yourself with a professional. Kate, reach out to Kate.
If it's investing, we're going to go with Mike. but I'm going to go to Mike.
But to this point, here's where the pros go. The pros go, well, we've got a relationship. We've got a strategic partnership, Heddle Real Estate and the Cape Broddick Real Estate team, whereby these are who's trusted and here's who we're going to put you in front of. And we do that. You do that with your home inspectors and your photographers. Yeah.
Every day of the week. I mean, if I had a client that came to me and maybe we bought a duplex or we bought a triplex, which I'm very comfortable with.
Yeah.
So as soon as you start getting over that 4 units, it's like, you know what? Now you need someone who has a bit more experience in this department, who's going to lead you in a path where at the end of this transaction in 5 years from now, you're going to be singing their praise. That to me there's not even a question. That's you know what? I've got your guy, Mike Heddle. Let's give him a call.
And we started this conversation out by going like honest and ethical and professional.
Yeah.
And that's the way the professional handles it. And you know what happens 10 years down the road? Your client calls you back because you've guided them accordingly. And so that's a great tie-in, whether you did that intentionally or not.
It wasn't. It's the honest truth. I mean, at the end of the day, perfect example. I have a client of mine who called me up and originally was living in Ayr. I sold their house. They moved up to the Muskoka area. Well, just outside, about 20 minutes outside of Muskoka. They had called 3 agents. 3 agents came in for a listing meeting. Not one of them got back to them in a week, which to me is like, you know what? That's not the norm.
No.
But she called and she said, Kate, I'm spinning my tires. We really want to make a strategic plan here. We want to sell. I said, you know what? I've got the perfect person for you.
Yeah.
It wasn't within my company. It was within the personality and the experience of the person that I know would bang it out of the water. To me, a referral is someone that isn't within a brand or within a group of people or within a area that you think, I should refer. They referred to me. It's who's going to get the job done.
Yeah, we touched on that
based
too.
on merit.
Putting the patient first. In medicine, could you imagine going into the hospital in the emergency room and having the whether it's a physician's assistant assessing, going, well, I'm going to send this to who I think is going to kick me back the most? Heck no.
Not at all.
You're going to the right specialist to make sure that the patient is put forth. And I think my life experiences have kind of made that an underlying tone for how to operate in this practice.
Absolutely.
And you do the same in a version of yourself.
Yeah, and that's the thing is you if you are so grounded in your ethics and in your values, you don't waver on that.
Yeah.
It's who's going to do the best for the client. And guess what? I got a phone call back. The house actually went up yesterday.
Oh, nice.
Super happy. Everyone's excited, and it's a good thing. That's a good feeling because I know at the end of the day that the job is going to get done really well.
Well, to compliment you again, because you've done a great job at so many things, your clients and your audience and your database knows that you're going to put their interests first.
Always.
And they know when you make that referral to Muskoka or British Columbia or wherever it is, that you're not only putting the client first, but you're going to leverage your great brand. Like when Mike Heddle receives a referral from Kate, like I'm saying to the team, this is a VIP. Like we're making sure that they get the best service that we can deliver.
Absolutely.
Because the relationship that we've developed. So.
And that carries on, right? And that's why you're here and talking about referrals with the largest referral-based network in Royal LePage, Canada?
I mean, I've never gone through the numbers, but we certainly have to be at the top. And there are some great brokers there. Like we just came out at an event that, like, there are just so many great nuggets when you mastermind like this. But we've built a massive referral-based business through, being honest and ethical and competent.
Yeah.
I often say that that's worth mentioning. Like, you should hire me for two reasons. Number one, you trust me, and I'll never take that for granted. But also I'm competent. So trustworthy, competency, is really the two attributes that we've, focused on to build such a great name within the industry.
And I've got two questions that I want to throw at you before we actually move on to your structural plan of your entire team and how you're running that team.
Okay.
First one is, how do you break down the barrier of someone who wants an investment property but is a little bit on the apprehensive side?
Yeah.
Because I get that a lot. We want to do this, but we're really scared. We hear terrible stories about being a landlord.
Yeah. Boy, having experience in that world, I think it was important. We have an onboarding process that would be known as a know your client. And there are times that you recognize they're going to get eaten alive by a downtown Hamilton lifetime tenant. Like, this isn't right for you. And you don't want to come out of the gate and tell them that this isn't right for you, but you show them. You take them to a few properties where you've got some disgruntled tenants and you see how they react to that sort of environment. And that's all in the sake of setting them up for success.
Absolutely,
we do this in our business. Sometimes there are tough conversations we've got to have with our clients to help them avoid self-sabotage. So we have many clients that we start with thinking they want to be bricks and mortar, and they end up investing in private mortgages and land equity. Yeah. And what I love about that is we're the one-stop shop where our clients call us first. We've been so involved in that space that we've got enough trust and rapport with them that they'll call us and say, hey, Mike, or hey, Shauna, I'm thinking of investing in this. What are your thoughts? So making sure that it's right for the client is always the best practice.
Absolutely. And just because they come to you and say, I think I want to be a landlord, doesn't mean that you have to say, okay, let's go buy a house. You give them other options in order to invest.
Yeah, or you educate them through the process.
Absolutely.
There's it's no different from market education and in the residential world. And
secondly, where did the passion come from the investing side? It's not for everybody.
The geek in me, the data-driven, numbers crunching. Yeah. I wish if everybody had a number instead of a name, I would be great. when you meet somebody, you meet somebody, and the moment they tell you their name, you just forget it. Yeah. If they told me that they were 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, I would be like,
you'd be like, I know
dialed
your number.
In.
That's right.
So I speak a number language. It resonates with me. So
very analytical.
Less emotional.
Yeah,
right?
that's okay.
You know, I've got an 11-year-old and 12-year-old, Hannah and Hayden, that are my daughters. They're beautiful. And I've come to learn as a father that my women have much more of a wide emotional spectrum than I do.
They make up for it.
They can laugh and cry in the same sentence.
Yeah.
Where, you know,
oh, Mike, that's all women. That's all women. That's not just your women. That's all women.
Well, right now, like my emotional spectrum is very narrow.
Yeah.
So whether I'm really excited right now or really depressed, you're probably not going to pick up on it.
Well, you have a logical brain.
That's right.
You have a logical brain. If the numbers make sense. Whereas, you know, the more emotional side or less logical side, you make it make sense to fit your emotions.
You know, that's that engineer mindset.
It's an engineer
based
mindset.
on first principles or order of operations, it speaks much more logic to me working through than the emotional side.
So now, because I had to know that, because not everyone has this passion. I have a passion very personally for the investment side.
Cool.
For me, I have one purpose. It's establishing generational wealth.
Yeah.
That was the reason why I got into it. Am I the right fit to be a landlord? No. So I problem solved that and got a property manager. That's not I don't want to deal with that. It's worth the cost for me.
Yeah.
But for me, it was building generational wealth to leave to my 3 boys.
Yeah.
I wanted something that I could grow for them outside of having to work harder.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean you don't work harder. But it was something that I knew that over time, if I landed it as a asset, and I maintained it, and I understood the ebbs and flows. I understood the risks with tenants.
Yeah.
I understood the numbers. But for me, that was the sole purpose of it, was for that.
I think as an entrepreneur, and correct me if I'm wrong, but you know, you've got to have some financial literacy.
Yes, you do.
That you find exciting. Like that
Absolutely.
part should excite you as a business owner or as an entrepreneur. I guess in more seriousness, at the age of 12, so talking about some privilege, you know, I had an interest in money at a young age, like so many boys and gals do. And I was fortunate enough to be able to sit down with my parents' financial advisor at the age of 12. And at that time, he gave me a new book that had just come out, 1989, The Wealthy Barber. And I read that book, and I tend to read it every few years. So, you know, I think part of the passion in the investment space is very similar to yours.
Yeah.
That I was an investor. My first job, I paid myself first. There was a principle in that book that he talks about: pay yourself first and pay yourself 10%. And I started doing that my first job at the age of 12. So although
That's
I
awesome.
was privileged, I call it, I was fortunate where my folks made me, if I wanted a job, I had to go get a job.
Privilege doesn't undermine the opportunities that you've taken and run with, but also the knowledge that you've sought yourself outside of just being privileged.
Yeah.
Right?
It wasn't an entitlement. In fact, I would enforce some of that privilege was giving opportunity to go out and do it.
Yes.
You know, what are you going to do about it? Or I grew up in the vintage Nike slogan, love it, like just do it.
Yeah.
So
absolutely.
if you want it, you got to go for it. So.
And then lastly, what I really want to speak to you about is this organizational plan.
Yeah.
And tell me a little bit about this. How do you implement this with your team? How do you implement this with your clients?
Yeah, I think what you're referencing, we chatted a little bit about this, is what I would call like an organizational structure. So I think you do a version of it as well. And maybe it's more, you know, the way leaders think of leading today.
Yeah.
But, you know, when I went to business school, we would draw an organizational chart with the CEO at the top. And then from there, you'd have your VP of marketing and financing and so on and so forth. And I think in this business particularly, when you're trying to motivate salespeople, we took that script and flipped it upside down and created more of and this ties into our branding, this apiary, more of a honeycomb. Like they're all intertwined. My admin team, you know, like whether they're marketing, whether they're operations, or whether they're just transactional coordinator, there's not a linear relationship. It's a very integrated relationship, much like a honeycomb or a beehive.
Now, how does that impact your team? Because I've actually spoken about this with you on a panel on Kathleen Black a few years ago, the bottom-up approach, which is something that I also believe very much in. It's not a hierarchy of, you know, the Cape Broddick team is up here, and then everything else falls down. If you flip that on its head, but how that has impacted your team from a leadership standpoint.
Yeah, I think it has a strong impact. I mean, you know, I'll still get some commentary like, you're my boss. And you may know this, like we're independent contractors and I'm not your boss. Like I view it as a partnership.
Yes.
In fact, we call all of our sales partners. You know, I think the mindset, like I wake up every morning with the mindset like I've got to make it rain for these people. So,
Yes.
there's not a day that I wake up and go, do this for me, do that, do this for me.
That's right.
From a top-down approach. In fact, I wake up going like, how high am I going to turn up the volume today? Whether it's in leads or awareness or marketing or education or scripting or all of the things that we do as business owners and team leaders.
But that's a very different approach. Not everyone takes that, or maybe they feel like they take it, but they don't implement it. And the reason why I wanted to talk more about this is because for any kind of agent who's out there who maybe is solo, maybe they're thinking of being on a team, or maybe they're thinking of starting a team.
Yeah.
I think that this is such a pivotal pathway for leadership to take, because it's not about what can you do for me, it's what can we do for each other.
Mm-hmm.
And I stand by that very strongly on my team, that it is a give and take. It is both servant, agent, and leader, whatever you want to call it, leadership, agents, admin staff, that are coming together and giving it their all for the greater good of both the team and the agents individually. And that is not something that people master easily.
It is probably one of the toughest components.
Yes.
This business is full of, if you've ever done disc personality.
I love disc personality.
Yeah.
I look at people in color. You look at them in numbers, I look at them in color.
I'm high C, right? High C.
Oh, yeah, I'm high C and high D.
But you see a lot of high I's, a lot of distracted, want to be seen. The industry's taking that shift too, which I find very interesting. Fake it till you make it. Like, no. Make it until you make it.
That's right.
Get out there and work hard and keep going until you make it. I was sharing with one of my daughters this morning that quotation, like, nobody's coming. It's like a David Goggins thing. Like, nobody's coming to wake up. Nobody's coming to save. Like, that mindset, I think, has to be part of the team leader.
Yes.
That has to be somewhat infectious on the team. But I think you're right in the sense that, my mission our mission is to deliver an outstanding result in buying, selling, while achieving a 5-star review worth telling friends and family about, delivering an experience.
Absolutely.
So there's so many facets to be a successful realtor nowadays.
Yes.
You've got to be a great marketer. You've got to understand contract law and negotiation.
Yes.
And customer service and marriage counselor and all of these things, IT professional. We've seen, you've done this 13 years, there's a major shift towards teams. I couldn't imagine being a solo agent anymore. In fact, there are days I say I'd love to be on my team without the team leader hat.
Yeah,
because there's so much that we do, and we do it because we're passionate about providing opportunity for our people and the client experience that's delivered. So, I think to kind of come back to your question, you do it through core values.
You do.
For us, in our office, the 5 values are at the foundation. It's strong relationships and effective communication. That is the foundation of our house, right? We've got to have those two. Strong relationships internally and with our clients, and communication is key.
It is key.
And I first heard Mark Ferris say this, so I'm going to give him a quote, but as I draw it out, like conversation between, I'll start with 1. For me, in terms of how difficult is it for me to make a decision on a scale of 1 to 10, it's 10 sometimes. I'm having this internal conversation. When I add you to the component, you've got what's going on in your mind, and I've got what's going on with my mind, and we try to communicate. It's not like 10 plus 10 difficult. It's more like 10 times 10 difficult.
Yes.
And then when you start to add one more person to it, there's an exponential curve in terms of challenges with communication. So that's pillar number 2 for us. Communication is really important. And at the peak for us is we look at striving with great excellence and great results. And I talk about this because I love this component of our business. One of our values is giving back.
Yes.
So it reads along the lines of we give more than we take in all aspects of our life. It's how we're perceived individually and collectively as a team.
I love that.
And I'll go on one step further. If I'm to be remembered, I want it to be around some form of prosperity quote that I'm working on perfecting.
Yeah.
And I believe in order to be prosperous, you've got to give more than you take. And you're going to say, Mike, I followed you this far, but you've just lost me there.
You didn't. No, because it actually goes back to what I think what I wanted to draw out, which I just did.
Yeah.
Is when you're following this bottom up approach, you are a servant leader.
Yeah.
There is no question about
Sure.
that. How many times can you say in the last few years you sat up thinking, how can I give more to the team? How can I help them do more? How can I help them succeed? How do I safeguard myself from having to, minimize my admin staff or make sure that I can pay for the offices or make sure that I can pay for the billboards or in your case, the referral fees or whatever marketing. Obviously you're not a one-man show. You've got 3 staff for 7 agents. That is a very high ratio of admin to agents.
And they're the foundation.
They absolutely
are.
You
would know that you hit on so many things there that I think are so important. You want to be a team leader. Like if I knew what being a team leader was 15 years ago, today, I'd probably go, I want to come join the Broddick team. Because all of the stresses that you take on as a business owner are just that. When you go through down markets and here in our local market, we've seen volume shrink by 20%.
Yes.
Pricing shrink by 20%. Yeah. A lot of people are reducing commissions by 20%.
Absolutely.
So there's a compound effect there that there's a lot of weight that sits on your shoulders or these team leaders' shoulders. And, serving your team, I think is the great leadership approach that you've got to have. But to be reciprocated on that, you've got to show up on the other side.
Absolutely, you do. Well, we just had this conversation when we had the panel down in Hamilton.
Yeah.
And one of the things we were talking about is, if an agent comes to me and says, well, and I asked them, what is it that makes you want to join the team?
I love this, by the way.
And
I want you to repeat it word for word because it was brilliant.
Maybe then you should say it because I forget what I said. Well, they said to me, well, I want to come for the leads. And I said, if you're here for the leads, you're here for the wrong reason. And you're here not in the right space.
Yeah.
Because that
if you're here for the leads, you're here to take from me.
That's right. And it's not that. It's I'm willing to not meet you 50%. Yeah. I'm willing to meet you all the way.
Yeah.
But I expect you to be there when I meet you to deliver.
Yeah.
And that's that to me is it's a servant leadership and it's not meant for everybody. I make it sound so like daunting. I absolutely know that I'm the right person for it because I'm willing to wear it on my shoulders. Because I'm going to come through for them.
You're doing a great job of it. And much like somebody looking to improve their health would hire a personal trainer, those are some of our roles. There's an accountability component where you're failing them if you don't hold them accountable to these standards.
Absolutely. And setting the standards for the team. And they look to us.
Yeah.
It's just like when my children are looking to see, we know the rule, but we're breaking the rule. What's mom going to do?
You've got boys. I've got girls.
they break the rules or they at least push me to the outer limits. But it's one of those things that they want to see that you stand by your word.
Sure.
Both action and obviously.
Absolutely. Well
you've
said.
Got to follow through, right?
Yeah.
So. This has been amazing.
Likewise.
Honestly, I love having our conversation. You are an incredible resource to this industry. And I mean that not because you're here, but because I've watched you grow your team. I've watched you follow your word. I've watched you speak at conferences. You're passionate about where you are in life in terms of both your career, your personal, your uplifting. I've never heard you say a bad thing about our industry. And for that, I applaud you because a lot of people want to get up and say our industry is this, our industry is that. It's not. Because why would you want to stay in there if it's like that?
You get out what you put in. Thank you for all of that.
You've done amazing.
Ditto, and it's an honor to be here, but also to spend a little bit of time with you chatting.
Absolutely.
And I look forward. I think we should call out. I'm going to call out if any of your members are interested in receiving that deal of the week.
I would love that. Yeah. Yes. Okay. So where would we find Mike Heddle?
The easiest. My social media, I've got gray hair, so you can find me. Mike Heddle on Instagram, heddlerealestate.ca online, Heddle Real Estate on Instagram and social media platforms. But I think one of the nuggets here that many of your listeners should take, even if it's a market education, like what's going on and what are they talking about,
absolutely,
in all these financial metrics, is going to www.dotw.ca, dealoftheweek.ca. I won't hound you. We don't harass you. We have many real estate professionals signing up for it and modeling it. So if you're new to the industry and you're looking to deliver a great value add, sign up and take a version of that and improve it. I've said this with Chuck Charlton, like you'll never catch me. I've got a decade ahead of you. Like I've got such a far head start that I have no fear of competitiveness.
No,
this is
and
a collaborative.
You've been consistent with it. That's the other thing. It's one thing to implement something, but it's another thing to continue with it.
It goes out every week. So I'd encourage you to subscribe. If you have any questions about it, reach out to Kate.
Actually, I think this one is a reach out to Mike, but I'm happy to connect you. And I actually want to take this one step further. If you ever have a thought of this is something I may want to do. Maybe not now, maybe not in a year, maybe it's in 2 to 3 years. Sign up for this newsletter, because at the very least, then when you start asking the questions, you have a little bit of information and knowledge behind it. And it's a great resource.
It's a great education tool. And I think perfecting any craft starts there.
Absolutely.
Right?
So, I mean, once again, this is going to be our March episode.
Cool.
It's my birthday month.
Oh,
Big
exciting.
42. I'm actually wearing my 40s proudly. I wasn't so much when I turned 40.
They're amazing.
You know what? It's like a whole new revital. You don't care as much about the little things, and you're so grateful for the things
feeling better.
in your life.
I wouldn't go back to 30s. I think this is the best.
No, absolutely not. I mean, well, maybe some things, but yeah, absolutely. So tune in for March's episode. You can follow us on Spotify, Apple Podcast, and YouTube. Mike, it's been an absolute pleasure.
Thanks, Kate.
I can't wait to get this out.
Yeah, thanks. Likewise. Thanks for having me.
That was great.
Cool.